All right, it is 6:05, so I'll go ahead and get started. Tonight is all four high schools of the Yakima School District are presenting an opportunity for community members to learn more about the modified school calendar. Before we start this presentation, I'd like to first off introduce myself and then allow my teammates to introduce themselves. So my name is Eric Diner. I'm the principal of Eisenhower High School. This is my fourth year at Ike, and I really love our community. I live in our community, and I'm excited about the opportunities here at Eisenhower and the Yakima School District. I'm going to allow Ms. Menard or Mrs. Menard from Yakima Line to introduce herself.
Good evening. I'm Lois Menard, and I'm the principal of Yakima Online. Yakima Online serves students in grades 6 through 12. This is my 12th year, and Yakima Online has been a school for 15 years. And when I worked at Barge Lincoln, we had the modified school calendar for several years, and I strongly supported that.
I'm Dave Chaplin. I'm principal at Stanton Academy and various other alternative programs in Yakima School District. And we as well offered an alternative calendar when I was the principal at Washington Middle School some 8 or 9 years ago, and enjoyed it.
And I'm Heather Hasty. I'm the principal at Davis High School. This is my first year here as principal and my 9th year at Davis. Previous 8 years, I was an assistant principal at Davis. And welcome tonight.
Thank you, team. And then we also have, would you like to say hello, Dr. Green?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Most definitely.
Wonderful. I'm having some connectivity issues, so if I drop off, please continue. I'm Trevor Green, the superintendent of the Yakima School District. I'm very proud of the opportunity we have to come together as the principal leadership of our high schools in the district for this collective, collaborative, joint presentation on modified school calendar. I have complete faith in the presentation and the explanations that will come forward. I think the only thing that I would like to share is that a modified calendar, which I'm sure will be emphasized later, a modified calendar is any change to the traditional 180-day calendar. So when we're talking modified calendar, we are not talking about year-round school. We're talking about potential changes.
And I believe, unfortunately, Mr. Green's connection, like he said, just disappeared. So I think I can speak and finish Dr. Green's line. A modified calendar is a change. Oh, he's back. So I'll let, are you there, sir? I'll go ahead and finish. We are going to be looking at a modified calendar tonight. A modified calendar is not year-round, which some people have thought.
I think I'm just being dropped a lot, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. And again, to take Dr. Green, I think.
Go ahead, Principal Diner, you take it. I can't guarantee that I'm going to stay on.
Okay. His connectivity is not working. It's not doing well for him tonight. But I want to stress what Dr. Green said. We're looking at a modified calendar. A modified calendar is a change in the traditional calendars, and we'll show you a little bit of what traditional calendars look like and compared to what a modified calendar is. Again, it is not year-round, and so year-round would be adding like a 260 days a year. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at still the 180-day school year, but having it change from the traditional long summer break. Our goals tonight for you is to inform the community about school calendar reform in the modified calendar. We are also going to have multiple opportunities, or at the end, opportunity for you to ask questions. And I'm going to go ahead and I hope my change of presentation works. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. And what we're going to be looking at is give you some information about a modified calendar and also what our calendar reform is looking like. So the first question that we always ask is, why are we looking at calendar reform? And I think what people need to understand is when our children are in school, and I hear this from parents that they know that their child is safe, they know their child is learning, and they know that there's accountability and a support that the families really enjoy having, and that's the support of the schools working with the families. The traditional calendar has a summer break that can be 2 months in length, or 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and those supports disappear for a long period of time. We know that, and I'll go to the next slide, that research has shown that that long summer break that is part of the traditional calendar has negative impacts on our students. And those negative impacts are learning loss, which you can see 2.6 months a loss of learning in math alone. That's also similar with our science classes and other core courses. The other item that I think high school parents, and we are targeting a high school audience tonight, is the impact on older children, older students, is greater than younger students. And as a high school principal, and I know my colleagues can share the same, that 9th grade year is extremely important and very critical. We see the biggest gap in student achievement at the 9th grade level. And the summer, the long summer break can cut or adds to that gap or that issues with students because they lost some of the knowledge that they learned in the 8th grade, and they come to the high school and we have to reteach, and it makes them fall further behind as far as the standards and such go. And so calendar reform is looking at how can we minimize the impact of a long summer break, the learning loss, and the achievement gap that takes place in the 9th grade. We're looking at calendar reform to benefit our students and eliminate the learning gap that a long summer break has, plus also looking at a modified calendar has other benefits. As you can see, in this slide, we do talk about the United States compared to other countries. Our modified calendar would still be 180 days. However, in the modified calendar that we're looking at, or what we options that we're looking at, and we haven't decided a calendar, by the way. I just want to let you know we are in the research and looking at calendar options. The 180 days would be spread out throughout the year, and it gives us opportunities to increase opportunity days for our students. If you look at the last bullet here, intercession opportunities, your child, or you might have heard that the Yakima School District is offering an intercession during the December break. These are days that are not part of the 180-day school calendar. They're additional days. So they're optional, but they are set up to help your student if they're struggling in school at this time to receive additional help to get passing grades or to add a little bit more knowledge for their upcoming finals and such. What is a modified calendar? You can see these two graphs. The first graph, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the top graph has the traditional long summer break, 60 days. And then you can see we have these long, consistent school days, so 70 days of work with weekends as breaks. And then we have our traditional Thanksgiving, Christmas break, or winter break, and then spring break. And we have the 180 days in those between those breaks. A couple issues that we see with this, and I'll get to it a little later, but the modified calendar breaks it down, and this is more of a 45 days, 15 days, for students to fall breaks, for students to do intersessions. And also another benefit of having shorter amount of time for school and having more breaks throughout is to eliminate some of the burnout that students have, and also to keep staff and students fresh. You can see that we still have on a modified calendar a winter break, a spring break, and a summer break. However, the summer break is no longer, or would not be 60 days. It would be 30 days with those breaks, those other 15 days or 30 days, excuse me, being spread out throughout the school year. And so that's what a modified calendar is. Again, 180 days with more breaks, and the 180 days are stretched out throughout the year. What are our benefits of the calendar? Again, it provides opportunity for students to continue learning, not have large summer break where they would lose some of the learning or some of the skills that they acquired in class. Opportunities for students to, during the intersessions, to recover skills that they need. Also, we can look at enrichment. So I know at Eisenhower we have AP, at Davis they have IB. Those students in those programs can enter intersessions to prepare for the dual credit exams, or also receive extra assistance as they prepare for their college entry. Other opportunities, vocational credit, hands-on projects, so forth. The intersessions provide multiple opportunities for our students. We also have seen in research that a modified calendar provides or has proven to show student attendance increases. And I do believe that's attributed to the small breaks throughout the year. It also eliminates teacher burnout, but keeps teachers in the classroom. We can, as a district, provide PD for our staff during those breaks, instead of pulling teachers out of the classroom, for example. And so there's multiple benefits to a modified calendar. How does staff on a modified calendar describe their experience? So a modified calendar, by the way, is not, there are districts out there doing it. Currently in the Yakima Valley Highland School District is doing a modified calendar, and so is Toppenish. And there are several districts around us that are looking or taking the time to look at a modified calendar. What we have heard from staff members at other schools is, again, a lot of positives. Quality of instruction is better due to that the students are not experiencing these long breaks where they forget some of the skills that they need. So there's not a lot of reteaching. They can continue to go through the progression of skills. Teachers are better able to plan with those small breaks. It does provide an opportunity for staff to reevaluate where their students are at and do planning appropriately to the current student skills. It does allow teachers to, or it decreases teachers' absenteeism. Staff and students' families, if we have multiple small breaks, you can schedule doctor's appointments and such during those times, and students won't miss. And then just looking at here, model enhances climate of professionalism. I know in the Yakima School District, while we have our early release Mondays, building those professional learning communities, having the shorter periods of time of teaching with a break in there allows for those PLCs and collaboration amongst staff to grow and continue to find ways to support your children and their education. This is a short presentation because our main goal is to answer questions that you might have, but there are also other items, resources that you can look at. So you can go to our website and you can look up modified calendar. And also, and I believe it's still going on through this week, you can join at the second Yakima School District website, the tejoin.com, scroll 849154492, and you can put in your thoughts and questions at that community forum there at the website. So you can go to our district website and look at some calendars, but also add your thoughts and ask questions at that site also. That's the presentation part. I'm going to leave this up here because we are here mainly to answer any questions that you have about modified calendar. And I am definitely going to slide back where I can see people. And Andy, we have.
Thank you, Principal Diner. We do have a couple of questions.
Excellent.
So intercessions at the high school level, are they voluntary? Are students invited? The intersections at the high schools being offered, are they voluntary? Do teachers invite certain students that need to attend?
That's a great question. I'll start with what we did at Eisenhower, and then I'll let the other principals. I know it's only intercession at the high schools at this time. So at Eisenhower, our intercession is looking at, first off, it is voluntary. So if a family is going on a vacation, you definitely can still go on that vacation. But what we did at Ike is we had our counselors and teachers look at students who were failing current classes, knowing that there's some skills that they can gain during these 2 intercessions, one before Christmas and one right after Christmas. And so we invited students who were failing at this time. Future intercessions at Eisenhower will have opportunities, different opportunities, either to gain credit and so forth. And I think that's true for Davis, but I'll go ahead and let Principal Hasty talk about the Davis one.
Thank you. Yes, ours is very much the same as Mr. Diner's. We invited students who were currently failing courses that they are in right now, and that way they could get additional help in those courses as the semester is coming up at the end of January. So in the hopes that they would be able to get the credit in their current classes at this time. In the future, we will be looking at doing that, as well as credit retrieval and enrichment opportunities. And it is an optional time for kids.
At Stanton, we looked at our kids. A few of our kids are credit deficient from various reasons, and so we offered an ELA, English Language Arts class, 2 levels of English Language Arts, and then we also have a math to help build up those deficiencies. And if they are current in all their classes and passing, and then we also offered a class where the students could gain another more credit towards the graduation or make up the areas. So we first of all went back and saw that they were failing. We needed them to pick up their grades. So we worked with those kids. And then if they were as current as they could be at this time, then we offered additional credit in the areas that they demonstrate need in. And of course, it's voluntary.
At Yakima Online, we serve grades 6 through 12, and our intercession is voluntary. And all of our students can work on their courses during the 2-week break. And I have a teacher and a paraprofessional who are reaching out to some of the students for extra intercession supports.
Thank you. Question 2 is, what consideration was given to the schedules of agricultural workers in the development, or what considerations will be given to our agricultural working community in the development of the calendar?
Yeah, I'll start. You know, I look at the modified calendar as an opportunity. And so we can definitely look at aligning some of these small breaks to fit the needs of our students who are working in agriculture. As a local student, I grew up here in the Valley. I remember some of our smaller districts, and I went to Natchez. We had apple break, where apple harvest break, and it was aligned with the harvest season of our apples, where the students had a week off from school to go work at the orchards. And I can see us looking at attendance data, seeing where our students who work in agricultural are missing, and if there's a predominantly a couple weeks there that is our attendance drops because of agriculture, that could be a great place to put an intersession break. That way the students aren't missing the 180 core days. And then it benefits our community because there is always a need for help, and it benefits our students so they are not having to make a choice, which they are doing now, of school or work. Heather, Dave, or Lois?
I think you answered that very well. If we're meeting the needs of our students and their parents who are working in agriculture, and I think utilizing a modified calendar makes us a little more flexible to do that.
One of the beauties of Yakima Online is students can access their course actually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that is a nice option for them to be able to do their schoolwork when it's works for them.
Yes, and just to echo what everybody has said, it's absolutely an opportunity to where we can look at where those 15 days are set and how that aligns with what work is going on in the Valley at the time.
Thank you. Question 3, is there more recent research in support of modified calendar models? Most of the sources cited are more than a decade old, and one is more than 2 decades old.
Dramatic pause. You know, that's something that we can definitely look into and find. I'm sure that there is more recent data. This isn't just a Yakima trend. I know OSPI with Superintendent Reichgirl is setting up grants, and Yakima has received a grant for calendar reform. Doesn't mean that we're going to reform the calendar. It's a grant to help us research and see what calendar reform could work best for our students. So that's a great question, and I will definitely ask Superintendent Green. I know he's been looking up more research and see if we can get that on our websites for our community members sooner than later. Okay.
Thank you. Next question. If we use the number of instructional days in other countries as a basis of a comparison, it's important to remember to note other differences, like the well-documented ineffectiveness of homework.
You know, I'll say it. Calendar reform isn't the magic bullet. There's other reforms that we need to do. And what we have seen, and I have talked to departments here at Eisenhower, is when we do assign practice or homework for students, are we overkilling it by having like 50 problems and such, instead of giving a student 2 problems, digging deeper and providing better feedback. But what we're looking at right now is reform of a calendar. But I will share with you, homework is being looked at not only here at Eisenhower, but I've heard the great work going on at the other high schools on the impact of homework. The other item that we are looking at too, and I know this is happening in all buildings, is grading practices. But tonight our focus is on reform calendar, and you're most definitely, if you want to talk to this high school principal of your child's about homework and other policies, we most definitely would love to have that conversation. So I think the one slide, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues, that shows the other nations having more days. That that slide is a fact. There are countries that have more days than us, but we are looking at how do we maximize our 180 using other funds to provide these intercessions, breaking down the long break that students have in the summer, which does have with it some learning loss. I hope that answered, but Heather, Dave, or Lois?
I've had the opportunity to work from preschool all the way up to graduation as a principal, and taking care of that long gap in the summer is going to benefit all grades based on my experience in elementary, middle, and high school. It just is a long time for students not to be focused on their academics. And at those transition periods between 5th and 6th, and then again from 8th to 9th, having those transition periods in there with the length of time that they are, if we reduce that, that is going to be beneficial in retaining the number of students who participate in academics when they get to that next grade level.
To echo what Principal Diner said as well, yes, we're looking at modified calendar right now, but as we look at homework practices, grading practices, what learning is, how it's measured, those are other pieces that I believe all of our buildings are looking at and really working with our teachers and to see how things can be done or reimagined differently. And so modified calendar is also one of these pieces.
And we are also continuously looking at practices that we are doing, communicating with the teachers of our course providers, and working with the Yakima School District alternative program teachers and online. And we are always bringing these issues forward and discussing them.
Thank you. We're assuming it's the amount of time away from school that leads to learning loss. But what if it's actually a problem of insufficient absorption time for new learning to be embedded in long-term memory?
Brain research. There is a lot of research that shows that a student needs to have the material brought back to them, so they at a later date. The research I looked at was having your daily schedule where you had math first period, and then you have math again in the afternoon, where you can allow the student to have time to absorb that information and produce a product. I think the modified calendar can still allow and maybe give us more opportunities to do that with the frequent breaks instead of one long break. We can provide maybe that power standard or that essential standard, teach that prior to a 10-day break, allow the students to think about it with our technology and Canvas. We really can be connected to our students 365 days a year. We can send information saying, now don't forget about what we talked about in this essential standard. So in that break, they can be thinking about it. So when they come back just after 2 weeks, the material, that standard, can be absorbed into the brain, where they are now starting to process answers or know what to do with the skill or the standard that we're teaching them. And so I think the modified calendar can actually work with that brain research. And it was very fascinating. I actually enjoyed that course that I took, and it wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple years ago. And so Heather or Dave, Lois?
One of the things that I will say as well, and not just within the modified calendar piece, but we are looking into doing a pre-teaching model as our we have experienced before a lot of how do you intervene after a student doesn't understand something or is assessed to not understand something. And now we're talking, actually mathematics is where we're looking at doing this model too, is the pre-teaching of a concept for something that they get later in the day, which is the same thing, I believe, is what Mr. Diner's talking about as well.
One of the things that we do at Stanton is a number of our students have demonstrated that traditional teaching has not been successful for them. So we are teaming a lot within our content areas. So the students will have ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics, and then they will use those concepts when they get into career technical ed classes. And a lot of our intersession classes for the next 2 weeks after this coming intersession are application models of taking the math concepts and then putting them to good use within our business and our culinary science class. And so just applying what they have learned leading up to that.
Yeah, we like to surround our students with learning all day long and repeating what they're learning, practicing it, advocating and supporting and working with YV Technical Skills School, where the students get that hands-on application. And then in the online environment, they get the technology, the computer skills, and knowledge worldwide of what they need and can use to apply it to themselves and better themselves as the future leaders of this world.
Thank you. Is there a process for contributing research to this modified calendar process? And if so, where?
I would use that email link at the bottom of the slide, the YSD Community Relations, and I think that they can guide you in the direction to provide the additional research. And if that doesn't work for you, then I would encourage you to contact the principal of your high school, and so they can facilitate you getting to meet with the person who would best utilize that research.
Thank you. Would any modified calendars include a virtual/remote learning option for students who cannot attend in person consistently?
You know, that's a great question. And I think what we need to do is bring that. I like that idea. We haven't really gotten into talking about the virtual piece for the intersession. And so I'm going to write that down and share that with the high school work group that is in charge of the intersession. And I know, I think my colleagues are there tomorrow too. So we will definitely bring that up as a wonderful idea down the road, because it would be, I think it would be a little unfair if we had intersessions where students were working and maybe they can access it on their campus and so forth. So thank you for that. We will have that brought up tomorrow in our meeting. I'm writing it down right now.
Because Yakima Online has always been a virtual model, of course, we have on-campus instruction, but we have been offering virtual learning, particularly since COVID started. All students have laptops in the district, and we are using both remote, virtual, and on-campus learning during the year. The intersession is going to be, for December anyway, it's going to be virtual.
Our credit retrieval class, which utilizes GradPoint, those students will be able to connect with our student credit retrieval teacher who will be on campus, but the students do not have to be because they can continue in GradPoint, obviously. And then I do have a couple of students who can only access one of my classes virtually. And so the teacher has volunteered to teach both virtually and in person. But that's two students who have extenuating circumstances that the teacher volunteered to do that. So that's why we're doing it.
There are some follow-up comments to those questions. First, this would keep students in touch with their teachers from wherever they are. Second, students wouldn't be absent if they could attend virtually, and teachers wouldn't need subs for delivery of instruction if they could present virtually when unable to be present in person.
I love that idea. We run into some contractual issues that would need to be go through negotiations between the district and the different bargaining units involved. I mean, that's what I foresee as being an issue in some of this. I'm not opposed to the idea at all, but we do have those obligations that we have bargained. If I'm wrong, then Eric and Heather can correct me.
The virtual opportunity is really important and critical. However, I think the in-person environment is really important and critical as well. We all had to deal with not being allowed to, be on campus. And it is so wonderful to have students back on campus, staff. I believe a mesh of the two is at this time a really great way to facilitate the educational system at this time.
We have no further questions or comments.
Before we adjourn, first off, thank you, Andy, for assisting with the questions. One item I want to make sure people, our audience knows too, is during our intersession, we are planning to making sure that students are served food. The intersession coming up in December is only half days, 9 to 12. Again, it's voluntary. I know that our leaders of intercession, our directors who are working that are looking at transportation for our students. We are looking at how many barriers we can knock down so our students have access, all our students have access to intercessions. This is our first one. This is something that we are definitely going to be looking at, evaluating the effectiveness. We're already starting pulling data on the students who are going to the intersection and then compare the mainly grade data from now and then compare it to their grades in January. Our goal is to always get better. And so I do want to thank people for the questions about the brain research, the questions about virtual options and such. These are items that I'll bring to our team. I know Dave, Heather, and Lois will too, and discuss. But I really want to, first off, and I'll let my colleagues say their final parts too. I really want to thank each of you for coming, taking the time to listen to us tonight. Our goal is to look at what can we do to better serve our students and attract the world-class staff. And I know we have great staff in all of our buildings, but we also want to see what can we do to benefit our students and again, attract and retain the staff, great staff that we have. And so thank you. And then I'll we'll go, Heather, how about you next? And then pass the baton.
Hey, I really appreciate you attending this evening's presentation, and feel free to reach out to any of us as principals of the schools that you're in I appreciate Mr. Diner for doing the majority of the presentation, but again, feel free to reach out to us at the building. So like if your student attends Davis, feel free to call, to email, or come down and we can work on answering more questions.
Yes, thank you very much for being here this evening, and reach out to any of us and we're here for you. And I will go ahead and, I don't know if you can see the chat or not, but I can put my phone number in the chat.
I want to thank you for attending, and we've had discussions between the four of us of using this format when we're talking about district-wide information meetings, rather than having four different ones where you may have children in each of the different high school programs. That if we do these district-wide information things, if you enjoy this format or you think this is useful, then please let us know that by either using the email link down below or talking to one of us at school, because we find this much easier if we do it this way, to give the information and get an opportunity to see what is going on in all the high schools, as opposed to just your specific high school. And thank you very much, and thank you, team, for getting together to do this.
We have one last comment and one last question. If just give me a second. It is really appreciated to have the opportunity to ask questions and have them addressed in real time. And the question is there any possibility of offering intersessions that are scheduled AM, PM sessions with lunch provided for students? Fewer days with more time and meals might support attendance efforts.
I'll answer that. That's definitely a possibility. Again, this is our first time. We selected mornings, but I do like the idea. I see this expanding. I really do, and I actually will share with you. I've seen us talk about as a district or as buildings, and maybe it's Dave and I in a conversation about what best helps our students. Evening sessions, morning sessions. So definitely I can see, because we're looking at a intersession at the end of February, the week of President's Day weekend, the 22nd through 25th, where maybe we do offer that morning and afternoon session and get the data from them. Did more kids attend the afternoon, or was it balanced? Did we get more students to attend, period? And if that's the case, then let's continue to do it. The one thing that you'll find from all four of us in the Yakima School District is we're a data-driven district. And so if our data shows that our students attend both morning and afternoon, why not do it? Again, what will benefit our students is what we're looking for. So I definitely will bring that up tomorrow with our team. And again, I can see, and I want to appreciate what Dave said, I can see us having one more of these or multiple more meetings like this before that February intersession, an opportunity to say, here's why we're doing it. And based off what we learned from this winter or December. So thank you. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, audience. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your holidays. May you have a safe and wonderful holiday season.